Hi, good day, listeners of the For the Greater Good podcast. Thank you so very much for making time to be here with us today. I am your co-host, Chanel Duby.
Hi everyone, I am your other co-host, Uzumaka or Jacko. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited for today's conversation. And we have an amazing guest here. As you will see, you all will really like this conversation. Because today we are exploring a few core values and their connection to create stronger, healthier communities, empathy, compassion, humility, forgiveness, and justice.
I'm excited. The title is called The Ties That Bind Community, Our Virtues. And being in such an environment where you can pinpoint certain things and you can feel excluded and included at the same time. We just want there to be a sounding reminder that we all belong to this community. And it's this one global community, not his, not hers, not mine, not ours, in the respect of ours of a certain group or class. So it's ours collectively. And a friend who is a content creator and a fellow actor, Evanis Hart, is joining our conversation on the subject of For the Greater Good, the ties that bind communities today. Welcome, Evanis. Thank you so much for making time to be here on the podcast with Uzo and I.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so very much. Are you excited?
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you, everybody, for having me. And thank you for listening, first and foremost. It's wonderful to be able to keep your attention long enough to have some meaningful conversation and dialogue. So I'm happy for it.
Well, we want to task you with, and this is an icebreaker, give us a chance to get to know Evanis better. And why did he even want to be talking on the subject of the virtues, some good grounding virtues of society? What is one word that comes to mind when you think of a truly healthy community?
I think that if you're having a community that's healthy, it revolves around the idea of people being grounded and being able to have trust. You have to be able to build trust with other people that you're coming in contact with every single day. Like if you have, an issue with your neighbor, you should be able to bring that up and say, "Hey, look, I love you. I trust you enough to be able to bring this to you, and let's have a dialogue. Let's have a conversation with it." But so often, we have situations where, the average person doesn't even know who their next door neighbor is, or whoever their neighbor is 2 or 3 more houses down.
Very true. Yeah.
I think for me, when I think of a healthy community, it's not only trust, but also communication.
Very
And
much so.
being able to share opinions, share values is so important. And knowing that it's not even that you're trying to convince someone to agree with you. It's just making sure you can have that safe space to have open dialogue, open conversations about issues that are occurring in your community, and also talk about solutions to how do we move forward.
Very much so. Yeah. I would say one word that comes to mind is vulnerability. I feel we have come so far from a world that used to look out for others, and now we're in a world that look at others. So if we're in a moment of distress or we're in a moment of panic, a moment of violence, you'll find us so easily taking our phones and reaching out to record, not to call help. Secondly, with the first action to be running to that person and coming to the aid and asking, how can I help? And how can I take that burden off you and relieve you of whatever it is? But we can't even do that for brothers and sisters. Therefore, we don't even show a vulnerability because we feel nobody will be able to step in and listen or support us or want to be there for our aid. And it's such a very difficult situation to be, because who are we on our own if we can't be here with each other?
Yeah. And, things like vulnerability, empathy, compassion are often used, interchangeably, but do you see them as two different?
Yeah, they are very different. So if you have empathy for somebody, what that is you have a shared feeling with whoever you're with, right? Obviously. But the difference with that and compassion, obviously both of them involve suffering, but the compassion component of it means that not only do you feel something with them, like in connection, but you're willing to go with them and the decisions that they're able to make, whether they be good, bad, or indifferent. Like those consequences, you share those too, because you had that compassion with them. You're able to go there with them. That's where those two are different.
I like that. That's very true. How can we ensure that as a community, as society, people, we still bring this together? You not say, well, I can understand, but I won't walk this with you.
Right. I think that it has to come from a place of agreement. And I think that that's where you have to start with people. And I think that a lot of that needs to come from being able to eliminate certain biases that you have. As you're connecting with another human being, you want to make sure that you don't lose the plot and lose your humanity in that too as well, by saying, hey, look, I got hung up on whatever this thing is that's keeping me from loving and caring about you. Whatever that may be, whatever that hang up is.
So it could possibly look like an absence of humility, because that is also another virtue that we need to recognize. It's so important in our society, in our communities. And it is overlooked in discussions and just in our actions in general. But how do you feel it is so critical, especially when we talk about justice or forgiveness? Because somebody can wrap around the empathy pad and forgiveness, but then choose to go in different directions than you.
And
How can we humble about all of this being tied together?
you got me, because I was ready to go in there and I didn't want to jump ahead. And you had already went there. So I'm like, okay, it was in my mind, because I was like, okay, I want to add to that, right?
Go ahead.
This idea that you want to have peace as your overarching component that you guys deal with, but you can't have peace if you have this idea of justice with being absent, right? You can't have, hey, I want, a society or a community that is so focused on order or law and order, as it's been presented so often in our society, with the absence of justice. You can't have justice not be a huge component of that. And along with that comes accountability. So when people, somebody offends you, you have to be able to bring it to them and say, hey, look, I love you, I care about you, but this situation that you did was wrong and there needs to be accountability for it. How do you atone for it? What does this justice look like? And when you can identify that, it can answer, several questions throughout the community. That's how you bring people together, is you have that accountability. But the absence of the accountability is always going to bring unrest.
Right.
Especially if you don't have people that can't acknowledge their part that they play in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
I think that has to be a leadership issue.
Yeah.
without jumping on homeowners associations, because we so often in communities deal with like, okay, we have a homeowners association and they're there to do what? Bring the community together. But so often we have people that they're more concerned with status. They're more concerned with being able to have the idea of having power over somebody else, that they're missing that we need to all be able to come together for the common goal, especially if we're going to have, peace and harmony, because we still all have to live together. We have to live with each other. So how are we going to live with each other? And you're holding this thing over me because you think that you have some kind of perceived power over me or over whoever this other neighbor is that you live in close proximity with. But we're all in this together. And I think that that's what people miss. And I know that this is like a microcosm for like a bigger, established idea for our society. But still, it starts with your neighbor, the person that you're in close contact with every day. If you can't have a conversation with them and hold them accountable for when you're offended or for when they're offended, what do you have?
Yeah.
Do you feel, or what are your thoughts on forgiveness in that picture? Because don't die. You're right here. You're right here. Back alive. What are your thoughts for forgiveness in the conversation of justice, injustice, and the lack of accountability when it is due and where it is due?
I'm not going to rush to answer that, only because I recognize that we are living in a system of injustice. And it's very hard to pinpoint what's what, especially when good is being called bad and bad is being called good. And so being able to forgive somebody is difficult, because it's like, we constantly remember, like, say you did something that was messed up to me, and I'm like, okay, you did something terrible to me, and how long am I going to hold myself in the imprisonment of remembering something that you've already forgotten? And I think that that's where we get messed up, is because forgiveness is a two-way street. And if we can't like forgive ourselves and we're still holding on to this thing, the other person might have forgotten already. So the forgiveness is for me.
Yeah.
The forgiveness is for the person that's supposed to be doing the forgiveness. Like you're out there digging two graves, not knowing that you're about to be in that grave yourself, because you can't get past the offense that you felt, although that other person has moved on. They've forgotten about it. I mean, they might have dwelled on it for a little bit, but then if you're the one that's constantly reminding somebody of the thing that they did to offend you, who's the person with the problem? I think that's
Yeah.
right. And I think that that's why it's hard, is because like you're trying to forgive somebody and it's uncomfortable because you can't like get past it within yourself. And it's like going to the gym for the first time. After you haven't worked out in a long time, it's like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. I don't know if I want to come back. And that's the same with being able to like have those interpersonal skills to be able to forgive yourself first, and then to have that extended to someone else.
Yeah.
If that makes
Do you
sense.
believe that justice and forgiveness can coexist without weakening each other?
I don't know. I don't know, because I don't know what the limit is for somebody to keep offending. Because if you have somebody that keeps violating and you're saying, okay, here's the line in the sand, and they step on the line and they're like, I just stepped on the line. Okay, here's another line in the sand. And you're like, okay, I'm going to jump over this one too. And then they're looking at you and it's like, you forgive me? Yeah, well, yeah, but here's the new line in the sand.
That doesn't mean you can keep crossing it.
Yeah.
They're
So-
constant violations.
Yeah.
Because there's this disrespect and this constant violation of these boundaries.
Yeah. And I think that being able to identify it is important, but having boundaries, I think, is more important. And I'm only getting that brand new, where I'm dealing with that with different people, where I'm like, okay, I'll present a boundary, and then I want to see how you react when you come up and you hit that boundary. And taking emotion out of it and then watching it's a lot different. I guess it's more freeing, if that makes sense. Because when you present a boundary for somebody, either they measure up to it or they don't.
Yeah. And then you let them decide, do you want to be a part of my life or part of
not.
the situation or not?
Yeah.
I think they can coexist. And it's a possibility that they could weaken each other, because just as you were sharing, that person might decide to cross one boundary and you give them a second and they were like, okay, well, can I cross it again? That definitely weakens,
Yeah.
the justice that could be served in the first line, which is, if you cross that first line of boundary separation and there's disrespect, then we are severing relationships.
Right.
Yeah.
Then that is the justice that they deserve. And hence that could weaken the forgiveness, because if they keep doing this again, like, do I really want to forgive you? But then there are certain times in society when we have to separate what do we want objectively, whether it is justice or whether it is forgiveness. And they can exist separately or interchangeably in what circumstance we choose to have it be existing in, because there needs to be justice, but there also needs to be forgiveness. So there needs to be both, with us looking at a certain perspective, a certain situation with a viewpoint of saying, does it deserve forgiveness in this moment, or does it deserve justice? And it becomes with the heaviness of the situation too.
I think that part of it is determined by what it is.
Yes.
And it goes, I had this conversation with a group of people over the summer, and I said, if we all call ourselves believers in the gospel, how is it that we've allowed for ourselves to have a hierarchy for sinful behavior?
Preach somewhere. Yeah.
And I left it right there.
And in reality,
Right. And I said, what? I said, who is responsible for being the judge for those things? And how did we come to be a society that relies on this idea that these different behaviors are just, you get no forgiveness, or your humanity gets ignored if you participate in these activities, but this set of activities over here gets overlooked.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, I don't understand how we got there.
Because we want to be the players of what's good and what's bad. And that's out of our hands.
Right.
There need to be proper societal systems. And yes, we all follow it, but then there is a God. And there are people who are religious and there are people who aren't, who are agnostic, who are atheists, and all those things exist.
That's right.
And then now we live in a society that caters to all of these. So it's a matter of catering to our individuality versus the common person as a community itself. All of us together, whether the three of us represent or believe in something entirely different. What is the common thread that is holding us accountable for the same thing? Not because you don't believe doesn't mean that you should not abide by this law. Not because I believe doesn't mean that I should be the only one abiding by this law. Because then we might see it because we believe differently as restrictions.
Right.
I can do this because I don't believe, but I have to do this because I believe.
Right.
But it shouldn't be that way. It is what is for the common good and the greater good of society.
Right.
That should be the driving force of discussions, of subjects, of actions.
I think we've allowed shortly society to punish certain people for those behaviors. Like, for example, if you run a red light and you cause an accident, the punishment is going to be greater. But some people, run red lights every day. And the idea is society is going to punish you for violating this, although something happened or nothing happened when you decided to run the red light. But it's already been established that, hey, society is going to punish you when you violate the laws or the rules of the road. And I think that with our ever-changing rules being changed consistently on a whim, I think that needs to be something that gets addressed when we're dealing not only with the community, but whoever our representatives are that are leadership over us, because we're supposed to be praying for those people too.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's interesting that you also mentioned, so yes, justice is seen a lot as punishment.
Yes, it is.
So
But it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. But now the main question is, how can we reframe justice to include empathy without losing accountability?
I think that it starts with saying what you mean and meaning what you say. And I don't really feel like getting good examples of that when people say things, especially like publicly or on podcasts. And, you've got these celebrities that we've been taught to worship. And it's so painful to see people and not see their character first. And that's why somebody had asked me the other day, they were like, hey, who's your favorite celebrity or who's your celebrity crush? And my answer immediately was like, I don't have one. And they were like, well, why not? And I said, well, I wanted to make sure that the person's character was greater than their charisma.
Woo. They're like, whoa.
I said it just like, I don't know why I said that was so smooth.
Right.
I said it just like that. I said I wanted to make sure that their character was greater than their charisma. And they were like, have you found one yet? And I said, no. Because if you need to have a PR person to go back and tell people that you didn't really mean what you said when you said that thing, I'm going to have a problem with it. Well, what else do we have to talk about? I said it just like that's exactly how I said it too.
There's going to be quite a bit of searching for that. But there are some of them out there just on the radar.
Yeah.
But you're right. Yeah.
And I think that it comes from the things that individual is doing when no one's watching. And we don't think that somebody is watching, right? Oh, always.
Especially this modern day and age, whatever you do is documented and seen.
Over and
Everyone
over
is
again.
watching.
Everything
but
that you
should
do.
not be the reason why we do things for people to see. It should be our nature, our core nature of doing the right thing in every single moment, whether someone is watching or not. And sometimes we do what we think is beyond integrity in the darkness, where we feel like no one is watching, because we feel like we don't have any other options to turn to. But have you given yourselves the option? Have you given the consideration of what are some of the other ways that you can handle your situation? Yeah.
You know how many times I failed at that? Let me just keep it. You know how many times we've messed that up? Like, And I think that is kind of where you find common ground with people, is being able to present to them, hey, look, like I messed this way up
Yes.
repeatedly and ridiculously, like over and over again. And only until I recognized that I was the one that was doing the self-sabotage, right, did I consider even changing that and giving myself extra grace.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what we do, is in our minds, we hold ourselves hostages. And we put ourselves in these prisons of, oh my gosh, I don't know, like I feel so alone in this situation, or I feel like I can't get out. And it's like you've you've made a pretty little jail for yourself in your mind. So what you gonna do?
Yeah.
How you gonna fix this?
Do you get out of it?
Right.
Yes. Yes. So there has to be some measure of forgiving yourself. And that
First.
to ask the question, forgiveness can sometimes be seen as letting people off the hook, without proper accountability. How do we practice forgiveness without erasing the harm that they have caused, the danger that they have brought upon others?
I'm gonna need some more time with this one. You want to answer that one first? Because, again, I be messing that up.
I mean, but the thing is that I think sometimes when it comes to forgiveness, there's different levels that everyone has. And of course, it's based on what you're trying to accomplish when you mention the word like forgiveness without harm, right? And I think for everyone it varies, but I feel like sometimes we try to fit into like a cookie cutter version of what we think forgiveness should look like. Like this is the perfect example of forgiveness, but it's like actually that looks like something different for each of us.
Sure.
And so what I think of how we can practice forgiveness without erasing the harm is saying like you were mentioning earlier, like forgiving yourself first, okay, and then forgiving the other person really means I am not letting them off the hook. I'm saying, okay, I'm accepting that they caused me harm. But at the same time, that's not, the fact that you caused me harm is now not going to make me start to retaliate against you, like tit for tat type of thing.
Right.
No, I'm going to accept that you harmed me, but now moving forward, yes, I've accepted, but now here's where I'm going to now draw a boundary with you.
I like it.
Yeah.
I think that that's kind of where I'm at, right?
It depends on who it is, like especially if it's coming from someone who has any kind of authority or power over you first. And I had two situations, and you knew of one of them, right? Because you were one of the first people that I had talked to, and I'm like, look, I want you to know this is what happened,
Yeah.
right? And when we had our conversation, I remember very vividly that you had mentioned that I needed to communicate to that person specifically. And I knew when you said it that I wasn't going to get the opportunity to have a conversation with that individual about it. So I looked inward and I said, okay, I know that I did not deserve what happened. And it didn't matter how many people had told me, from outside to reiterate, hey, look, this was big, it was ugly, it was disgusting, and it shouldn't have happened to anybody. However, because it did happen, you didn't deserve this. So in my mind, the first thing I went to was, okay, what tools do I have? What boundaries do I have in order to put in place to ensure that I can't be hurt in this way? And some of it hurt, but at the same time, like the only person that was feeling sorry in that scenario was me, because I was like, okay, I had this situation happen and it might affect my performance, right? It might get in there and affect the way that I do my work, but it really shouldn't. And I think that I guess hindsight is always 2020, because if I, ran into this individual again, I'm still going to walk in love. I'm still going to treat them with respect and decency and consideration.
Right.
I'm just like, we can still be friends. I'm just not going to work with you anymore. And it's that direct. I mean, I would tell that individual, look, I can't work with you again. And if you ask me why, I'm going to explain to you, this is why. But I'm not going to have any hard feelings or any kind of like animosity to carry, because that's a hard burden to carry too. Like
you.
For somebody else is like you have animosity towards them, and they still, at least at minimum, if nothing else, gave you the opportunity to have a larger audience see you work. or do whatever the work is that you've done.
Very true. So even sometimes that harm can be in reverse of the intended harm. It can be for your own good, where
Right.
society and some people see you differently because of the harm that they've decided to put upon you. But it always comes back to just a measure of the situation you're dealing with and how exactly you want that to be done, with just a simple measure of forgiveness or with justice being served, because depending on that level of harm that is done, yeah, you need to be something else needs to happen than just me forgiving you.
I think there's more to that though, because is it our position to be the purveyors or the people that present or mete out that justice though in that moment?
Perhaps not even us.
Right.
No, and that's why sometimes only just our forgiveness that we can give, that they can get from us is that, and not the justice part of it. The justice might come from the bureaucratic, the digital side of life, but it's
Sure.
not from us.
Oh, and let me be clear to everybody who's watching and listening. It doesn't make it hurt any less. It's
Still hurts.
It still hurts, but you have the opportunity and the ability to extend by your actions that, hey, I'm not like you.
Right.
I'm not going to offend somebody else or hurt somebody else, because hurt people hurt people. I'm not going to do this to someone else
Right.
because I was presented with this slice of life from you.
Right. And has there ever been a time like in your life where, we talk about humility and that has made like a space for breakthrough in a very difficult either community conversation or another conversation you've had with someone?
I think it reminds me of, my child, right?
Yeah.
My parents split up when I was little, and I would never, and I'm going to say this like this. Every single day, I find more and more that what happened to me is not something that I would ever consider doing to my own child.
Right.
And so because I'm getting that example and I'm like, okay, this is year number 9, it's different because you have a choice. There's always a choice. Even when somebody presents to you that, oh, I had no choice. No, you had a lot of choices, but you chose and you decided what your destiny was going to be based on the circumstances that you had around you. And yeah, you made poor choices in this area, but you kept making poor choices. So you've got a decision to make. Either you're going to make the poor choice in that decision, or you're going to make a great choice, because each one of us is the sum total of all of the decisions that we've made, whether they be good or poor.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. So every day we are choosing to make choices. So we hope that we endeavor to make good ones.
Right.
Sometimes it comes with us doing it with intention, and sometimes it might have been rituals of ours that we just continue to do in perpetuity.
Most definitely.
Are there practices you do or you think we can do on a daily basis to ensure that, whether small and meaningful, it drives compassion, it drives empathy in our communities?
I think it's good to not move any further until they digest the idea, especially the people that are watching and listening. We are the sum total of all of the decisions that we've made, whether they be good decisions or poor decisions. I'm not going no further until they digest it. No, we're going to make sure they get that today.
To let that sink in.
If you didn't get that before, I'm going to make sure you get that today.
Did you get that? We got that. Yeah. What are some of the practices you think can help drive through those virtues?
Making a commitment to be true to yourself first.
Yeah. 100%.
See how I did that without crying?
Because it's so hard sometimes to be completely true to yourself, because we do live in a society where we're kind of taught and we have all these pressures and things that it's kind of forcing us to act in a certain way that it makes it really hard for us to stay true to ourselves, because we have all these competing beliefs, we have all these competing practices, norms that this is what should happen, this is how things should be, but is this really true to who I am down at my core?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do I want to do this because the broader public is doing the same thing?
This reminds me of a time where I was doing a lot of driving for Uber back and forth, and you get to get interpersonal relationships with people, and you get to like do icebreakers and meet with them. And I'm reminded of a time where I drove a young lady. Her name was Jasmine, and while she was in my vehicle, this was one of the only people that I had ever driven more than once, and she was in the back seat, and I remember her going through that, where she had a realization that she was not only true to herself, she wasn't being true to anybody. And so that was her New Year's resolution, that she was going to stop being bogus. She was going to stop being fake. And so if she stumbles across this, I hope that you were able to meet that moment years ago. And I hope that, even until now, you've kept that commitment to be real and to be true to yourself.
So along the conversation of how we can embody these values, like how can community leaders integrate humility, justice in their own decision making?
It doesn't come without a demand for it.
Yeah.
We have to be able to demand for the people who we are spending our time, our talent, our treasure, our energy on, to be able to make decisions to fight for us in the way that we need them to fight for us.
Without question.
Full stop. If I have somebody who's representing me and they make a decision that I don't agree with, they're getting a letter, they're getting a phone call, they're getting correspondence if I have that correspondence with them. But so often we keep seeing these folks that are so-called leaders serving their corporate donors and not serving the people.
Back to the people. Yeah. Whether it is an upside down triangle hierarchical chain, back to the people. That's where it should go. Thank you so much for that. As we close on such a wonderful conversation, and it is definitely so important this time, and we should never stray from it. We define it in different ways as culture changes, people changes, different things become relevant. But there are times when, based on the temperature of the environment, some of these virtues are more urgent than others. Which one would you say from the five of empathy, compassion, humility, forgiveness, and justice is most urgent in this day for us right now?
Along with being able to live a quiet and peaceable life, as outlined in the scriptures there, right? 1 Timothy chapter number 2, we have to be praying for our leadership. We have to be, giving that moment and that time to say, hey, you know what? The people that are in charge of us, we have to make sure that we are praying for them to make right decisions for us. That way we can live in peace. That is what the scripture says specifically. So being able to follow that and acknowledge that, hey, like, this is not something that I can do by myself. Having, a spiritual intervention to be able to take care of business for us. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all want to have, is like peace and harmony, so that we can like live together as human beings. And somewhere along the way, we've lost that ideology. So I think that the biggest thing is having justice. You can't have order and harmony and peace and all of those things with the absence of the component of justice. You have to have it. I don't know what that looks like at this point, though, but I know that with how archaic our justice system is, that needs to change first.
Yeah. I think right now, the biggest thing that I see is not something that we actually talked about earlier, but just introducing a new idea of knowledge and advocacy.
Yeah.
We did talk about advocacy a little bit, but most importantly, I think knowledge. Because I think a lot of things that are currently happening right now is as a result of a lack of knowledge. And I think a lot of us kind of also goes with what you said, Chanel, compassion, and what you shared, justice as well. I think we need to, as a community, really take the time to learn about how these certain policies that are in place right now, the structure of our government, the structure of how our justice system works, like more knowledge about what is actually going on. And importantly, like seeking that knowledge out for ourselves and making sure that we're getting that knowledge from a correct source.
Yes.
Most importantly, too.
Yeah. Not somebody that wants to influence you one way or another. It
Yeah.
has to be neutral.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any closing thoughts for our audience, Evanis?
I think that it starts from within.
Yeah.
I think that if people aren't willing to make the change, they shouldn't expect change from other folks. We've gotten so hung up on this idea of doing something onto someone else because you feel like you're the moral authority on that. And it's like, how did we get here? How did we get to the point where someone who has no morality can say, hey, look, I'm holding this morality over you because my way is greater than yours somehow in the land of the free. So we need to call on some of the people that represent not only the land of the free, but the home of the brave. We need some home of the brave people.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning into this meaningful, great discussion. We hope that you can follow us, subscribe, leave us a comment. Like, what are some of these values that we've discussed that you feel is really urgent now in our society? And of course, to leave our audience with, Evanis, where can our audience find you?
You can find me on YouTube. I do have a YouTube channel that has my name on there. It's Evanis, and I do story time with Evanis. So just as it sounds, just write it out and you'll be able to find me on there.
And we'll definitely link all of the socials on below. So be sure to check out our details and descriptions below. But thank you all so much. Be sure to subscribe, follow, comment, for the Greater Good Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Make sure you follow us and tune in every Wednesday for new episodes on Spotify, YouTube, of course, and Amazon Music. Thank you all.
Thank you.